What up, guys? Welcome to today's Jiu-Jitsu podcast with ADCC Trials winner, Michael Pixley. He'll talk about it in a second. Won multiple college wrestling titles, and he won the ADCC Trials at West Coast this past year. Stud wrestler, very nice kid, very nice young man. Came in, taught some wrestling last night at the gym, and then we rolled afterwards. And I'll probably post the video up on the YouTube at some point soon, and you can see me just get beaten up by a youngster, which is good, you know. But I was like, I had to roll with him first. I was like I'll talk with the podcast. I'm like, if I'm gonna get my butt kicked, I got to do it first before you're tired from rolling with all the students. Got to get them while he's fresh. So anyway, fun podcast. Check them out afterwards. Great stuff. Great wrestling style for any of you guys that want to study how to do low risk, high reward takedowns, or if you're a little bit older and don't want to be shooting. He's got some great upper body type of like slide bys and throws and things like that. So it can be a great study for you if you like to study jiu-jitsu matches. Again, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web, for making the podcast happen. Again, if you guys have never tried CBD, or if you've never tried Charlotte's Web CBD, they're one of the premier companies out there. They third-party test their products to make sure they ensure a certain amount of quality and purity is in there. And again, it's for me, it's part of recovery as I get older, doing, you know, all sorts of different stuff to try to help aid that recovery. Share some more stuff with you guys in the future on that. But again, trying to do all sorts of different stuff to aid recovery. And one of those things is CBD. And I take it at nighttime. Usually it sort of follows a nighttime routine of a little bit of magnesium with some vitamins at night. When I go to sleep, I'll take a shower, and then I'll have my CBD, and then I wind down, listen to audiobooks, read a book, whatever, do something to, like, you know, and then I also have some like red light lamps, red light bulbs, dim the lights down, and then just sort of unwind and have at least about 30 to 40 minutes before bed to just chill and relax. And that seems to help. Again, I notice a difference from it. It's why I take it. And again, if you guys want to check it out, go to their website at charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu30 for 30% off the order. Also, thanks to our buddy Matt at Epic Roll for helping support the podcast. If you guys have never checked out his website, go to epicrollbjj.com, look through the website. He's got a lot of really cool t-shirts, rash guards, shorts, gis, the whole thing, anything jiu-jitsu related, he's got it. I'm a big fan of the quality of the rash guards, especially. I'll be doing another batch of rash guards with him here in the near future for the jiu-jitsu stuff. I like his stuff. You know, again, it's a little different than some of the stuff I've felt out there, and I really like his shorts. Pretty much at this point, if I'm wearing a rash guard or pair of shorts, it's pretty much all I'm wearing right now. And I like his stuff. So again, if you guys want to get some really good no-gi gear or some t-shirts, gis, whatever it might be, check them out at epicrollbjj.com. Also, thanks to all of you who are Patreon subscribers. Again, you guys are helping support the podcast directly. And if you guys would like to help us directly and become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. There's a couple different options there. You know, you can support the podcast with whatever means you have, comparing those two options. So what is it? It's like
$7 and then $10.
$7 and $10. And again, that goes to support the podcast to help keep things going, again, because there is equipment, there's things that required to kind of keep things chugging along. But with that, when you join up with the $10 option, you will get access to the library of content we've created, which has everything from seminars that I've recorded, warm-up routines and stretching routines that Eugene's recorded on like jiu-jitsu camps and things like that. So this way, if you're a little tight or you need to get a little bit looser, you can do that. There's also an ad-free version of the podcast, and there's some other exclusive content that we have back there that you can get access to. And again, it supports the podcast you guys listen to. So if you guys want to check that out, go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, guys, if you would like to get my daily email where I dive into everything from the books I'm reading to philosophical ideas I'm chewing on to jiu-jitsu training tips, dieting tips, strength training stuff, just anything and everything training or mindset related, really, go to jiu-jitsu.net/join. When you join up, you put your email in there, you'll get some free gifts from me that go into jiu-jitsu training ideas, some ebooks. And then afterwards, you will get my daily email. You can keep the gifts afterwards for free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. But otherwise, you can join the thousands of people that enjoy reading the emails every day. You know, even it's interesting. I get messages from people who don't even do jiu-jitsu. Like they're like, I used to do jiu-jitsu. I don't do jiu-jitsu anymore, but I still read your emails. Or there was a guy who like, he's never done jiu-jitsu. He started watching my videos online, and then like, he just basically he does another martial art, but he'll buy courses, he'll like do stuff like that, and he'll read my emails because he's like, I just like supporting you and I like reading the emails.
Sweet.
So again, if you guys like reading something, and it basically will take you, typically the emails are very short, probably take you about 5 minutes to read, not even that long, maybe probably about 3 minutes, and you can get a little idea to chew on in each email, and then go about your day. And guys, with that said, let's jump into this podcast with Michael Pixley.
Do you have any crazy weight cuts? Any fun weight cut stories?
There's a ton.
Well, you came from wrestling, so like the wrestling weight cuts are pretty intense. And I imagine, I don't know if you did or not, but I mean, I remember when I was like starting to cut weight when I was younger, like 20 years ago. We would just do dumb shit. We're just like starving ourselves, running around in like sweat bags and stuff like that. What's your worst weight cut story that you have?
So there was this one time I cut 17 pounds.
And how fast?
3 days probably. And
Do you have time to rehydrate at all when you do that? Like,
so when you're a kid, you do, but when you get to college, they only give you 1 hour. You make weight, and then 1 hour, then you wrestle. But as a kid, I made weight, and then I chugged this Pedialyte, and then I went to chug another Pedialyte, and I shit my pants.
Oh, how old were you?
I was probably like 10 or 11.
Oh man,
it was at like the biggest tournament, Tulsa National.
Did you have time to change, or what?
Yeah. It was,
okay.
I kept it low key. I told my dad, I was like, we got to get out of here.
Hey, we got to go for a second. Scrap pants.
Well, that was
at least it happened then instead of being out on the mat. Like that's you don't want to be that guy, especially like you're like in my day, like when I was wrestling, we would have been like, you would have kind of went away. With you guys, like everybody's got a phone now. You've been the guy that shit his pants forever.
Yeah, I've been that guy.
Who was it Tim Sylvia or one guy that like
UFC?
It was Tim Sylvia, I think, in a
he
fight, like
his
pants went down, I guess.
Oh
man.
So you're how old were you? You were 10 years old and you were cutting 17 pounds?
I probably wasn't cutting 17. I probably cut maybe 10.
10. Okay.
What percent? I mean, like, what percentage of your body weight?
How much were you weighing back then?
Maybe 85
85.
pounds.
Okay. So that's
a lot. Cutting like big. Say cut 10 pounds. It's like
around 10%.
I cut 17 like every week when I was in college, my senior year.
Where did you go to school?
So my senior year, I went to McKendree, Division 2.
Division 2.
It's like 30 minutes from where my parents live. My dad I was going to school in Iowa. My dad had a heart attack, so I moved closer to home. So that's the reason for that.
Where were you? So were you wrestling Division 1 initially?
I was the number one recruit in the country, graduating high school, signed a full ride to University of Illinois, and didn't pass the clearinghouse. So I went NAIA, and I was wrestling at Grandview. It's in Des Moines, Iowa. They're like 11-time champs. It's basically like the Penn State of the NAIA. And I won a title for them. And then it was going into my senior year. My dad he had a heart attack. So I just decided to move closer to home to be closer with them.
Yeah, and then you won there in the D2.
Yeah, and then I won a title there as well.
What was the difference, do you think, like as far as just those different divisions? Would you say there's like a huge skill like discrepancy, or do you think there's really good wrestlers? Obviously, NAIA is probably really good wrestlers as well. What would you think, like the skill wise? How was it?
A lot of the guys in the NAIA, like the champs in the NAIA, they could wrestle Division 1. Place the Division 1. The top guys, I'd say Division 2. It's a lot deeper than the NAIA as far as like skill wise and like tougher matches at the national tournament for sure. I feel like the NAIA is kind of hit or miss. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because in jiu-jitsu guys don't know much about, like, if they just did jiu-jitsu, they don't really know much about wrestling. So like, they'll hear, I've seen this happen with like Brandon. They'll be like, oh, he's just an NAIA guy. He's not a D1 guy or something. It's like, you don't understand wrestling.
Yeah.
There's a lot of killers out there. Like you're saying, like there's some champs in NAIA that could have wrestled D1, but maybe they got a full ride. So you get to go out of college with no debt.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's great. Opposed to like, well, you're going to have to fight for your spot here and you'll still have debt when you get out of college, right? It's like, it's a free education and you get to wrestle and it's, it's a good deal.
A lot of it too is grades for some of the guys that their whole lives only been focused on wrestling.
Mm.
Whereas that's kind of where it was with me. My senior year of high school, I kind of just was being a shitbag. You know, senioritis was serious, and we got to leave for lunch. So I would leave and not come back to school, and then failed my 6-hour class. That's why I didn't make it to University of Illinois. And yeah, I mean, it's either grades or money.
Yeah, one or the other.
For the most part.
But do you think, is there anything like you regret from that time? If you could have do anything different, do you think you would have just focused more on school, or do you think it just the path that you went was the path you were meant to go on?
Yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. I think everything worked out perfect.
Yeah.
You know,
what were your goals like with wrestling? Was it a transition to do something else, or was it just something that you did that you grew up doing that you were kind of used to?
Yeah, it was pretty much just my whole life. Started when I was 8, wrestled. I mean, I still wrestle.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just a part of my life, I guess.
Was it like something like, were you interested in it initially? Was it something like your mom or dad got you into? Why'd you start wrestling?
So I did judo before I wrestled.
Okay.
And for like 2 or 3 years. And then I was in 3rd grade, and I remember bringing a flyer home that was wrestling. I was really big into like WWE.
Yeah.
My Uncle Kevin, we watched WWE, get all the pay-per-views and stuff. So I thought that my first practice was going to be WWE.
That's awesome.
And they got me hitting duck walks and army crawling and doing all this crazy stuff. And I was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And then I remember my dad picked me up the next day at Latchkey. It's like an after-school program. And he had a new pair of ASICs wrestling shoes. And I was just hooked. And then I wrestled and did judo for 1 year. I did both. And then after 1 year of wrestling, I said, Dad, I just want to do wrestling full time. And that's kind of where it started. And once he realized that I was interested, you know, he took me everywhere, all over the country to get me to where I was at.
Did your dad wrestle at all before? Do you have an athletic background at all?
Yeah, he was a pitcher. He played baseball.
Okay. So he kind of understood kind of like sports and stuff. One of our guys at the gym, his son right now, he's at Oklahoma State doing some camp, and he's a high schooler, but like, you know, he did judo competitively. And so he's like, you know, getting him to all the camps and stuff like that, because he knows it's what you need to be, if you want to be the best that you can be, right? Like you got to get out there and get the experience.
Exactly. My dad, he basically just, he didn't have really an idea if he was doing it right or wrong, you know, but he was just doing what he thought was best.
Well, he was an athlete though. He understood like you're going to have to get out and get experience. So he was at least supporting it, like from an athlete to another athlete.
Yeah. And I'm sure he asked other parents like what the right and wrong things were to do. And yeah, it all worked out.
Do you have a match like out of your wrestling? We'll get to the jiu-jitsu in a second, but do you have like a match that stands out as like your toughest match that you can remember? It could be a win or a loss, right? Because sometimes you have those tough, grindy wins and you win, whatever, or sometimes it could be a loss. But was there one match that stands out to you as being like a tougher match, or maybe a tournament that was a really tough one for you?
Really, all the college titles were tough. I mean, I remember my freshman year, I was undefeated in the national finals. And the guy that I was wrestling was 28, so there's no age limit in NAIA.
Damn, he's old.
Yo, he was a grown ass.
Yeah, he's a grown ass. How old are you? Like 18?
I was 18.
He's like he's got 10 years on you.
Just turned 18. I just remember like doing everything that I possibly could to try to beat this guy, but like he was just had that grown man strength.
Yeah,
like I was sprawling, doing everything right, and he was just picking me up over his head, and I was like, this is embarrassing.
Damn.
I only lost by like 1 or 2 points, but it still was like one of those losses where it hurt me because everything that I was trying to do wasn't working, you know, because he just had that like one up on me. Another match that was like a breakthrough for me was probably my junior year of high school. I was warming up, and I hear on the intercom, it was at Fargo, which is like the toughest tournament for high school.
Yeah. Because Fargo's where they do like sort of the high school national championship, right? Yeah.
It's the freestyle Greco nationals. Yeah. So I remember warming up, and I hear on the intercom, they're like, your featured match on Matt, whatever we were on. I was like, they're like, up next, the number 1 wrestler in the country. And I was like, oh shit, I'm up next. And I know I'm not the number 1 wrestler in the country. And then they were like, Dominic Abinator. So I went and looked at the screen. I was like, damn, I got to go against him next. And it was like a fight or flight moment. You know, I was like, I can go out there and like be soft and let this dude beat me. But I convinced myself that I was going to win right before I walked out there. And I ended up teching him.
You teched him.
Teched him 12-2.
So for anybody that doesn't, like for any of you jiu-jitsu guys that don't know wrestling, like like getting pins, one thing, it's like being submitted, whatever. Teching someone in wrestling is like basically, it's almost like
It's like the mercy rule.
It's a mercy rule, right? So you get tech, but it's like, I feel like if you wanted to go out there and like almost be like, you don't even belong with me, it's like you tech them. Like you can pin them real quick, whatever. But if you tech them, it's like it's almost like you're toying with them, because it's like I can run up this score so high. And you're not even in the same league, because I remember like, sometimes guys would go out and like they're like just try to run the points up and see if they could. So like teching is kind of a big deal, because it's like usually the matches are tight, especially against two guys. They're, you're going to win on a point or two. Guys are smart, so it's a big deal to do that, especially against guys like number one in the country.
Yeah, he was the number one wrestler in the country out of St. Ed's, Ohio, and I wasn't even ranked in the country at the time. I was like just going into my junior. I would have been a junior that year, so I was still like sophomore year summer. This dude's already committed to Michigan to wrestle Division I, and after I teched him, the day one was over, and I remember walking up to the stands to get my stuff, and all these coaches were like, "That was incredible, this and that." And I was like, "That was a big win." And then I tech falled everybody I wrestled at the Fargo tournament, even the guy in the finals.
That's impressive. And that's like one of those things where sometimes you get thrown into those opportunities where, like you said, you go into it and you're battling with your self-doubt, and you go out there and just do the damn thing. And then afterwards you're like, you come away from it with a sense of that, like you're better than you think you are. Like sometimes it's like, sometimes our physical abilities sort of go forward, where our like a mental state is sort of still catching up, and you have those moments where you just go out there and let your training take over, and then like afterwards it kind of gives you that mental confidence where it kind of catches you up to speed with like, this is where I'm actually at now.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was, because it was like I developed like kind of like a wrestling swag after that, because from that tournament on, I think I went undefeated the rest of my high school career, and won state, won Fargo again the following year, and it was just a huge breakthrough for me.
What do you think? Was it like, how did you convince yourself? I mean, obviously it's like the number one wrestler in the country you're going against, and you're just like a sophomore. Like, how do you convince yourself like you're gonna win? Did you say something to yourself? Did you just kind of go after it? Because something switched, right?
Yeah, I just told myself right when I walked out there, I was just like, I'm gonna win, and I'm just gonna do everything in my power to win this match. And yeah, the guy ended up just breaking. Second period, he just kind of shut down, and I was like, this is over with.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's a mixture of both, right? Because obviously you could, train like a scrub, and then you can do all the mental affirmations you want to. It means nothing. But then if you're training your tail off, and then on top of that, like you say to yourself, I'm going to win this, and then because of your training, you go out and do it, then it's like, no, I am the person that I think that I'm trying to become. I'm actually getting to that point. So I think it's like a little bit of both. Now with jiu-jitsu, how did you like when did jiu-jitsu come into the picture? Like, so like, when did you say, you know what, like, because you're obviously doing really well in wrestling, and I'm sure you could pursue that to deeper degrees, but at some point jiu-jitsu comes into the picture. How did that start?
So I had graduated college or whatever. I was done with college. It was like 2 years after I was done. I was coaching a high school wrestling team, and one of the guys I was coaching had a black eye, and I was like, did you get in a fight at school or something? And he was like, no, I went to Pedigo Submission Fighting. He's like, you should check it out. It's a bunch of world champions there. And I remember he must have said it too close to my phone or something, because I went home and started scrolling through Facebook, and then it was just a bunch of videos of like Andrew Wiltsey and Couch. And
what year is this?
This
roughly?
Is like 2021.
2021. Yeah. So this is like when like the Daisy Fresh stuff was starting
It
to
had
like,
just started.
it was starting to really take off, and they were like, I mean, a lot of us had seen, like, I'd seen Wiltsey back when he was a blue belt, and it was like, who's this killer? Like,
Yeah,
a
he
blue
was
belt,
beating
right?
black belts.
Yeah,
Man.
it was like super. So like a lot of the guys that like were out in this area in the Midwest and everything else, we all knew that the Daisy Fresh guys, the Pedigo guys, were super, super tough. And I feel like with the show, all of a sudden it's like it put a spotlight on Heath and all those guys that he was training. It was like kind of exposed them to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and then I seen the videos, and I messaged Heath, and he said, yeah, come tomorrow, where it's a wrestling class. So I was like, I'll be there. And I showed up, and it was a wrestling class for about 10 minutes. And then it was straight. They put me in a group with, well, this is how it really started. I walked in there.
There we go.
I walked in there thinking I was the big dog.
Yeah.
I seen the video of Couch talking about biscuits and gravy, and I was like, I'm coming for that dude. So I seen him, and Heath was like, let's hand fight. So I was like, boom, boom, boom,
Sure.
throwing Couch around. And that lasted for like one round. And then Heath was like, all right, grab a drink, 4-man groups. So he put me with Andrew Wiltie, Couch, and Troy Mercer. And I could tell if something wasn't right because Couch had like this look in his eye, like I'm about to fuck you up. And it was one guy up, one guy down, pass, sweep, submit. And they put me down first.
Of course.
And I think the round was like 10 minutes long. It felt like
an
minutes.
eternity.
And they were just knee cutting me, arm bar. It was just brutal. I think I thought to myself like 10 times, just you better not break. And it went through my head, man, just screw this, get up and leave. But I was like, I can't leave. And I remember the drive home, I kept telling myself, like, you just got to keep showing up till you can beat their ass, dude.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time. And I ended up moving to Mount Vernon like 2 weeks later, started training full time.
How far was that from where you lived?
It's like an hour 15.
Okay, so
like,
it's not a huge move, but
10 minutes, 15 minutes from St. Louis, but on the Illinois side.
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday. I think this is always interesting, like when you can see someone sort of shelf their, because again, our ego is just who we think we are. It's like the stories I tell to myself. So if like I talk to you right after you won the, national championship, it's like, who are you? You're like, oh, well, I'm this guy and I won this thing and right? I've been wrestling since I was a kid. But then being able to shelf that person to like become someone else, it's really tough, because especially if you have a construction of yourself that you like, it's like, oh, I feel pretty good about this. Like I'm this champion, I'm this, that, whatever. Then to go into a situation where now I'm getting beat by everyone. Yeah. That's tough for a lot of guys, and a lot of guys don't do well with it. I've seen a lot of guys from like wrestling backgrounds come into it, and we talked about this last night, who, they're getting choked out by the 15-year-old kid with friggin' acne who flips burgers on the whatever. It's like, it's hard to deal with, right? Like it can be hard for your ego, and you got to leave that at the door so that this way you can, like you said, gain the new skills that you need to beat the guys.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu definitely made me never underestimate the nerds. Like they are dangerous when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. What was the hardest maybe transition or part of transitioning from wrestling to jiu-jitsu? What was something that maybe you struggled with that was hard for you to get a hold of?
I think really just learning to don't go into each practice trying not to get scored on. Rather go in there, and the goal should be to get scored on. You should put yourself in bad positions. That way you can kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work. That was probably the hardest. I just now figured that out probably this year. Before it was just like I was so competitive and it was holding me back, I think, because now that I kind of just open up and just go for stuff at practice and don't really care if I get tapped or, I feel my game just really starting to grow more and more and more, especially with the leg locks.
Yeah. Well, especially like when you're getting into that stuff, because, there's a time for that, right? Like if you're going to do some comp training or you're getting ready for a tournament, you're doing specific rounds for that, then like you got to dial it in for the points. But especially when you're trying to expand your game, you have to be willing to get in there and like mess around with stuff. Cause like for instance, a guy with Couch, who has like an incredible leg locks.
Yeah.
There's no way for you to ever even think about being on his level, even with defense, let alone submitting him, if you don't go in there and get dirty and get caught like over and over again. Yeah, you have to do it.
When I roll with Couch, I can make it boring, maybe pass his guard or whatnot, but I'm not getting anything out of that.
Right.
We get more out of it if I step into his guard and start playing the game. He's my friend. He's not going to break me off, even though he has before.
Right. Yeah. No, of course. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like you have good training partners. You can train and put yourself in those bad positions. But like you said, you have to get rid of that competitive side for those types of training sessions where you're going to actually try to like work on your game opposed to, work on your ability to compete.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think like as you're still like actually really early on in jiu-jitsu. I mean, you're still like, obviously you've wrestled so much, but you're still a purple belt. So it's like, it's almost
purple belt. You're like, what, 4 years in?
It'll be 4 years in November.
Yeah, 4 years. So
you're new. Like, it's like you're supposed to make mistakes.
Exactly.
This is the time to make those mistakes, right? This is the time to get caught.
Yeah, he tells me, he's like, your objective should be to get submitted 20 times at practice.
It means you're kind of putting yourself in uncomfortable spots.
Yeah, like when I'm shooting out like with the leg locks and stuff, obviously I don't know where to put my feet every time, so I get caught in heel hooks every single day.
Yeah.
It's just part of learning,
Yeah, but that's something that holds a lot of people back. I mean, it held me back when I first came in because it's the same thing. I had the mentality of like, I got to win. And it's like, it's practice. It doesn't count. Like, when we're competing, that counts. practice, it's like we're working, we're training, and it doesn't count, and you can't walk out of the room with one practice today.
Yeah.
It's a stupid mindset.
I tell my kids, because I got the PSF Wrestling Academy, I tell them they get frustrated and like have temper tantrums and stuff. I'm like, dude, you see a scoreboard in here?
Mhm.
There's not a scoreboard anywhere. It's like, get back to work.
Yeah.
This ain't the world championship, bro.
That's a good way of putting it.
You got a lot of years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you have to have those. You have to have those days that are frustrated, and I think that helps you, gives you perspective too. Because if you're winning all the time, there's no reason for you to ever change what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I still go in there and get frustrated. You know, if I do get submitted, I'm trying like to work on stuff, but never like throw like a tantrum or or make a scene. I just eat it, and I just regroup at home.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where a lot of times jiu-jitsu guys, I've heard them say you don't lose, you learn. Like, well, not really. You lose. Like you took an L. Like but it stings a little bit, and it's good that it stings. Sting. It's like watching like a kid or a toddler, right? If they go up and they do something and it hurts them, like gives them pain, they'll stop doing it, right?
Sometimes.
Well, right, maybe sometimes, right? But it gets them to be more aware of that situation. So like if you go in there and you get caught and you get frustrated by the situation, it's good because it's like, well, next time you're going to be more aware of that situation. It's good that it was stinging, not just like, oh man, no big deal, I didn't lose. Like, no, you lost the match, you lost the situation, but like learn from it, and that sting that you get from it helps you kind of take notice. But like you said, you still have to keep it within reason. You can't be throwing temper tantrums on the mat and crying or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
What's like how would you, and this might not be a fair example because you guys have crazy practices at Pedigo, but like how would you kind of contrast or compare a wrestling practice to a jiu-jitsu practice? As far as like difficulty and like skill acquisition, things like that? And is there anything about wrestling that you feel like is better about skill acquisition or vice versa?
I feel like with wrestling, every practice was kind of like the same. You go in there, you drill, hard drilling, your takedowns like that you're gonna hit. You're getting a lot of reps in. Whereas like with jiu-jitsu, you come in, obviously you can train on your own and drill as much as you would like, but with like a college wrestling practice, it's like 30-40 minutes hard drilling and then like an hour just straight live. So I mean, I would consider a Pedigo practice pretty similar to a college wrestling practice without like the standing, like the neutral drilling.
Yeah, well, and also too in wrestling, I mean, there's obviously a lot of nuance to the positions, but there's less like positions to deal with, right? Like it's like you're on your feet, you're up or you're down, you're in certain things like that. Whereas like there's so many intricate positions that you can get stuck in with jiu-jitsu that just it creates a lot more variables, a lot more things to like deal with.
I think jiu-jitsu is the step past wrestling. Like wrestling is really good base, probably the best base for like MMA, but like in wrestling you can pin somebody, cool. In jiu-jitsu, like you almost go past that part. It's more like you pin them, but then you're trying to submit them. There's just a lot more options and a lot more things to learn, and I don't know, it's like jiu-jitsu a lot better.
With your training, do you still drill your techniques and your movements and everything else? Because I've always found value in drilling, especially if I'm trying to sharpen something up. And I know that in jiu-jitsu now there's like a lot of different convergent thinking. Some people are like, oh, you drill, or some people are like, no, you never drill, there's no point, whatever. With your training, if like you're getting ready for a competition or if you're trying to improve a certain area of your jiu-jitsu, do you drill the techniques or do you just do live rolls?
Yeah, so like Mondays and Wednesdays at noon, that's our drill class. So like we'll come in and kind of, Heath has like a layout of what he wants us to work on, so like lately I've been working on a lot of like back control stuff. But and then like Mondays and Wednesdays before the drilling, it's a lot of like sparring in different positions.
So from you guys, you'll do some drilling on like days, and then you'll have like your sparring days, or like during that particular class.
It's like right before the drill is when we do it.
Okay.
So you're getting, how long are usually your practices? Are you all having pretty long, like 2 hours? Like
the night classes are probably about 2 hours, and then like the noon classes are probably about an hour 20.
So like, are you taking any days off? Like, because obviously you're coaching, and then you're obviously training. Like, what's your schedule look like on a weekly basis?
So Mondays and Wednesdays are like my chill days. I just train I do conditioning in the mornings and then drill, and then I'm off till 6. Then it's no-gi. Tuesdays and Thursdays we'll wrestle at noon, which is like super hard wrestling class, probably the hardest class of the week. And then I'll coach at 4:30 to 6, and then gi class at 6, and then I'll coach high school practice 7:30 to 9.
So this is your full-time gig, man. This is what you're doing pretty much.
Yeah, this is my
Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling is pretty much all you do at this point.
Well, I don't think you're not gonna go win the ADCCs if you're not all in.
Yeah, you got to
Right.
be all in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the way it is now. Like, I feel like, I don't know if that was always, because I think people couldn't make a lot of people couldn't make a living just doing this full time. But I think now, I think the level of jiu-jitsu, I mean, like, you've only been training for 4 years, you're counting your wrestling in, but specifically jiu-jitsu for 4 years, and you're already winning ADCC trials, which is crazy. I mean, we had it's rare. Like, I think like that's just that's a testament to, you know, your skill set and everything. But I think there's the level of jiu-jitsu. We were kind of talking before the podcast, level of jiu-jitsu, so I think it exponentially increased.
One of the things I'm interested in, because when I remember watching, I believe it was probably your first trials. Was it back in 2022?
Yep.
Yeah.
West Coast.
Yeah. So I watched your first trials, right? And I mean, like, I'd watched you compete before, like super tough. You went in there, you know, did all right, and then you got stopped along the way, whatever. And this is like one of those things too, where I was talking about this in one of the videos, is like, you know, all the trials winners and stuff, every one of those dudes for the most part had been beaten at some of the other trials. You know, you're paying your dues, whatever, but you won the trials or whatever. And you did so relatively quickly, considering, like I said, you had a deep wrestling background and you've got your jiu-jitsu is getting better. But like the way that you won, it wasn't like a lot of the old wrestlers used to win. So back in the day, some of the wrestlers would do ADCC. You guys can go watch the matches. They're terrible. Like, it would just be like, you get the takedown and sit. Maybe a little bit of guard passing, every now and then a submission, but almost always just kind of sitting there. Your ADCC performances were pretty damn impressive. I mean, you're going in there and submitting guys really fast. What do you think allowed you to do that? Like, basically to rapidly get better at jiu-jitsu and being able to do these things. Because again, when you're going in there and wrestling, obviously it's clear wrestling's good, but you're also putting guys away with submissions, opposed to just sitting there and squeaking out a stalling victory. What do you think's made that possible for you?
I would just say all the amount of like solid training partners that I have. You know, like, you can grab anybody in the room and none of their styles are the same, you know, and we kind of all help each other learn. Like, I learned the Peruvian necktie from my boy Franco. His coach from Peru actually invented the move.
Oh, wow.
So I learned that from the source. And then I don't know, just the whole vibe on my team, and how we just all help each other get better.
Well, and you guys have that energy behind you right now, where it's like there's obviously older people there too, but you guys have just a bunch of young guys that are out there that are all in on this stuff, and everybody's got like one mission.
Yeah,
and it's the same mission.
We all just train together all day, every day, and help each other on and off the mats. You know, it's like a big family.
Yeah. I think it's important. You got to like each other. You know, if you're going to be on the mats together all the time. And
exactly.
There was that one.
And at the very least, you got to trust each other.
Yeah.
Right. You got to be at least like, even if you don't necessarily like love each other that much, you're like, man, I got to be able to trust you with my joints.
Well, there was that, it was kind of old school. What was that video that was going around? Like, there was like a fist fight. Like, the guys got into it. Was making,
you're talking about Jesse and Wes.
I don't know. Like, and like, I think Heath was like, well, figure it out, you know? And then
he's like, you want to fight him? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I can set that up. And they locked the door, took all the phones, and they had like a volley judo fight in the middle of practice.
That's old school, bro.
I know. It was like, figure it out. And then are they buddies now, those guys?
Yeah, they're all cool. Everybody's cool. They might fight one day, but then the next day they're shaking hands,
right,
hugging it out.
Well, that's most of the time. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Like, some of my friends, we came to blows at some point or another.
Yeah, those are the best rounds that you get, usually with the person that you don't really like the most. You help each other get better with the best rounds.
And you guys, you have like there's a certain like connection there, you know. But even like even some of my best friends, like, I remember we used to beat the crap out of each other, and there was every now and then, man, I remember we'd get like close to it, and we'd be ready to fight.
There was a fight every day at the college room. Every day somebody was fighting. That just means you're going hard.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when we were kids, we would practice. It was like all the best kids on one team, and we'd be fighting. And then it got to the point to where our coach would just throw the gloves in. Then he would make us fight. We would make us, we'd want to fight each other. So
Yeah.
we'd fight each other. And then as our punishment, he'd make us do wall sits and pass the medicine ball back and forth till we'd start crying. Then he'd be like, you guys want to wrestle now? Please, please.
Get out of your system.
We won't fight anymore.
That's funny.
Who's like one of maybe like your main or a couple, who's your main training partners at the gym? Like who do you think has had a big impact besides obviously Heath, like that's really helped you along the way kind of to improve your jiu-jitsu?
Definitely Couch. He basically helps me with anything that I need help with. You know, he showed me how to lock up the Dars the right way, showed me how to transition to the Anaconda the right way. And I help him with his wrestling. He helps me with my jiu-jitsu. It's a good trade-off.
Yeah, it's kind of like you've got like certain areas you're an expert at, and you're just kind of seek, like you say, you're using that person to give you that specific, almost like the best instruction you can get. You got somebody that's really good at those things. You're obviously a phenomenal wrestler, so you can kind of show those things because that's not, Jacob's kind of like bread and butter, what he started with. And so I think that's pretty cool to see.
And another person is definitely George Valadares. He's like one of the people that's helped me with like ankle locks and stuff, and just like playing guard. Like he helped me develop like a guard. And like now I'd say I have a pretty decent guard. I wouldn't say it's good, but I think it's all right.
What was that pretty hard for you just to be on your back? It's pretty challenging, I'm sure.
That wasn't even challenging for me. Like a lot of wrestlers say that it's weird for them, but like I knew what it was coming into it, so
it's more of a mental thing, right? Like you just got to mentally accept it. Just
think of it like wrestling upside down. That's kind of the best way to describe it. You can still get all the same grips you can if you're standing. And I feel like I can wrestle up on anybody.
Yeah.
So I kind of like playing guard.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say like a lot of stuff like butterfly and things like that. Like you said, you can use a lot of the same grips. You can wrestle up. You can come up from half guard. You can come up from singles and doubles and stuff like that. It's just, again, getting out of the mindset that I'm playing off my back or I'm playing guard and that it's a bad thing.
I've learned that, like, honestly, if a guy's really cagey and not engaging with you, it's almost easier to pull guard and then wrestle up from there.
Just because you get that distance.
Well, yeah, especially for you, because if a guy doesn't want to engage with you on the feet, then like it's
he has to engage them,
right.
So.
Yeah, because a lot of times, especially for you, like I'm sure you'll run into situations where guys are afraid to basically like lock up at all with you.
Yeah, they're real cagey and don't want to make contact.
So if you hit the ground, then like you said, they'll force them to engage. With your jiu-jitsu, do you remember like your first jiu-jitsu comp? Like how soon after you started doing jiu-jitsu did you have your first competition?
The next week.
Okay.
They threw me in with the Wolves. I remember they were like, hey, you want to go with us to this tournament in Iowa? I'm like, sure. And then they're like, yeah, we'll just put you in the beginner division. And then those
poor beginners.
First match, I got this black dude. He's jacked. He's a purple belt. George is like, oh, dude, he's fat. Don't worry.
Beginner division. You got purple. Yeah, right.
So George and the Couch are telling me that this dude used to be like 400 pounds and he lost all this weight. But that's not true. I looked at the dude. He's just and this other kid was like stepping on my shirt and stuff right before I was about to go out there. And I was like, hey, bro, watch it. He's like, what? And I'm like, we can go outside. I was like wanting to get kicked out of the tournament so I didn't have to do the match. And Alejandro was like, hey, bro, we'll whoop your ass after he goes out there and competes. And I was like, damn. So then I went out there and I ended up darsing the guy in like less than a minute. But it was just like one of those moments that I got really scared right before I was about to go out there. And I probably shouldn't have been. But the dude actually came out in a wrestling singlet.
Oh, wow. Like maybe this guy's got something.
I was like, maybe this dude's like just trying to like psych me out or something.
Did he have any wrestling?
Nah.
Not right. Not your level.
The second match, though, I had a heavyweight for a Northern Iowa wrestler.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, they threw me in with the dogs the first week. And then I remember after that, I was just like, I got to compete more. So I would go work the Fujis and compete every weekend.
Yeah.
And then I did an IBJJF probably like a month or two at Orlando.
Yeah.
And then whatever he told me to do, that's basically just what I did.
Do you have a favorite like rule set you like to compete in? I mean, ADCC seems like, from what I understand, what I've seen, seems like it's really good for wrestlers. A good rule set for wrestlers.
Yeah, I like the ADCC rule set.
Is there anything specific about it that you think is kind of that you enjoy?
Just the whole rule set in itself and the overtime. I don't like the EBI overtimes. Because I just feel like some people just kind of stall
the first 10
to the
EBI,
so it's kind of not a rule set I like, but I like the overtime starting on the feet. If you pull guard, it's negative, so it's perfect for my style being a wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was never. I said the same thing. Like a lot of people will talk about the EBI. I like that there's like a finish to it, because instead of just doing a draw. But it's like, man, I don't like where you'd watch the old EBIs. Nobody really started to game the system. They were just going after it. But then like now, when you watch an EBI rule set, it's like, unless you get two guys that want to kill each other, most of the time they kind of just play really like passive.
They just wait to get to the overtime.
That's it, and then they go to the overtime rounds, and that's when they kick on. Something that you mentioned yesterday, we were talking, which I think is really interesting, because a lot of people would probably like, again, you've already accomplished a lot of stuff in wrestling. You've been competing since you were a child. So people would probably think that, oh man, this guy, like when he walks out, there's no fear whatsoever. There's no nerves. It's just whatever. But you were kind of telling me yesterday that it's kind of like, it's not true. It's kind of the opposite. So for you, when you go out in the match, do you still have some like nerves and jitters before you go out and compete?
Yeah, like every single match. It doesn't matter who I'm going against or like where it's at. It could be at a local competition. It could be against the biggest scrub. I still get nervous every single time.
And you said it kind of like, because of the way that you sort of interpret that nervousness, right? It makes you fight better.
It's like nervous. Like I use it to my advantage, really. I don't let it like overwhelm me and like scare me. You know, I just like, it means that it's important to me, you know. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, I remember we were talking yesterday. We were saying that like, because I was asking you about your submission rate, because you have a really high finish rate in matches, and a lot of those finishes come pretty damn quick. Like at the ADCC Trials, you were submitting guys like within the first minute. And you said it was kind of like you're out there like, I'm not here. Like you said, it doesn't matter.
Kill or be killed.
Kill or be killed, right? It's like, I'm not here. You could be going against the biggest scrubber, not I got to finish this guy.
Yeah, because then he doesn't have a chance to like take me out. You know,
Yeah.
So if I get it over with quick, he can be like, oh, he caught me, this and that, but the match is over.
Yeah.
You're like really focused on being first. I mean, literally, like,
yeah, strike first. You know, I'm not trying to give the guy a chance to pull guard. If I could snap him down and get in the front headlock and darce him before he even realizes what happened, that's what I'd rather do, rather than him pull guard. And now I got to deal with all the different guards and all the leg attacks and stuff like that.
what was the difference? Obviously, like West Coast Trials, the ones recently that you won. What was the difference between that? Like, do you think there's something changed, something happened that you kind of had such a dominant performance?
I mean, I put on some size. You know, I started lifting. I started focusing on like the little details. I game planned a lot more for it. You know, I kind of knew going in there what I needed to work on.
Yeah.
And I also just told myself, look, man, you got to just believe and just go out there and do it. And that's kind of what I did. And I didn't doubt myself. You know, I just kind of let it all hang out rather than trying to hold back and just scrape by, you know.
And also, too, again, it's one of those things where you're still young in the sport, so you're rapidly getting better. But it's like, you know, like a guy like our Dia. I mean, the guy's got such good leg locks. I mean, if he starts playing the game, it's a pain in the butt to deal with. So he has a lot of experience there, or you know, depending on the situation. So like, but with you guys, and I've noticed the same thing with Brandon. Like, you guys are like rapidly getting better. So you'll lose at a competition, and then it's like you see another month or two, and it's like you've had a big skill jump.
Yeah, I think losses for me motivate me more than like winning big tournaments, you know, because anytime I take a loss, I kind of go back to the drawing board and then I just dial in.
Lights a fire under your ass.
Even harder than I was before, you know.
So you said you gained some weight. I felt that yesterday. I was like, man, this fucking guy feels strong. I was like, holy shit. Like, I was like, you know, because I remember seeing you a few years back. I was like, hey, like whatever. But like yesterday, I was like, good Lord. There was one point where you had me like your hands wrapped around my back, squeezed me in side controls, squeezing the crap. I was like, like you son of a bitch. I started laughing, and I think he started like laughing. He's like, why are those guys laughing? I was like,
He's putting it on you, man.
Oh man, it's super strong.
Feel it.
How much weight have you gained since you've been making a concerted effort to do that?
I put on probably like, I was weighing like, I would cut down to heavyweight, maybe be like 208. Now I'm 220.
Yeah. So serious weight.
I've been eating 6 times a day and lifting really hard with a personal trainer. And I got an actual nutritionist now. So
it makes a big difference in nutritionist part.
It does. My boy Rob Waters with Raw Nutrition has been helping me out, getting me dialed in for the ADCC. And I think that's what's the missing box that I needed to check. Yeah. Because now my cardio, like everything just feels so good. It gets boring eating the same things over and over again, but
like, the results are nice, right?
Yeah. And I'm not like super like like stuck on it. Like if I want to have a cheat day or something, I
Yeah.
will, you know.
Right.
Mm.
Well, especially as much as you're training, if you eat some extra calories, you're probably just going to get burned up.
Yeah,
anyway.
it's not like I'm trying to cut, you know, I'm trying to bulk, but it's like a clean bulk.
So with the nutrition part, what's been the biggest difference for you? I know that for me, like when I started working with a nutritionist, when I would do my weight cuts and stuff like that, I was eating like a massive amount of food, but it was like the right food, and eating like 5 to 6 times a day. It's like, it just was a different way that I ate before. For you, like, what do you think was like one of the biggest differences that for you with your regular eating compared to like now?
Definitely just cooking my own meals. I used to eat out a lot.
Okay.
Now it's like my girlfriend helps me out with it a lot, but it's like you got to be like on top of it, you know, or else you'll miss your meal. And like it's like you're on a schedule 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I got to eat 6 times a day, and it's like 2 meals after my first training session. Sometimes like I'm rushing to eat, and it's like I'm not even hungry, and I have to force myself to eat.
Stuff
So
it in
it's
there.
and plus, like now that it's summer, it's like all the water that I'm losing. I got to add like 8 pounds of water on top of that. It's brutal.
Yeah, because you guys don't have AC.
No, it's miserable.
And it's like in the middle of the humid part of the country, man. Like
Well,
it's not just hot, it's like humid, just sucks it right out of you.
you mentioned something that Heath did something. You guys actually do have AC, but something happened at
Somebody
the gym.
bought a thermostat, put it on the wall, and Heath came in and seen it. And I don't know where the thermostat was.
No, it's on purpose.
So,
We have AC upstairs for the wrestling because like the little kids would probably freaking quit.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
their parents this is torture. They
Right.
already say that anyways, but they we just turn the air on for the kids when it gets too hot.
Yeah. I mean, it's adds another level of difficulty, honestly. Like it makes it.
It's hard, man.
It's tough for me,
It's
man.
been hard for me too because it's like after like 4 or 5 rounds, I can't physically put enough water back in me, you know, without feeling sick.
Yeah.
So it's like I've been having to like put salt in my water,
Like some electrolytes and stuff.
and they'll open the door and turn the fan on. Then it's doable. But the last practice, they didn't do that until we were like 6 rounds in, and I was already smoked. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
What
man.
goes through your head? Like if you're really fatigued, man, what do you how do you dig deep? How do you like just get a little bit
it's
more out
hard.
of it?
It's hard to dig deep when it's hot like that. It's like you're in survival mode. I don't know. I was doing around and I was just holding on. I felt like I was going to pass out. I was like, I just got to get through it. And I looked up, there's 6 minutes left because George's crazy ass has been throwing 10-minute rounds on there. So
It's like a hot yoga room with jiu-jitsu.
it's like a high yoga room, especially in the gi.
Oh man. Oh,
I haven't put the gi on since I won trials except for Sunday. And it was like the hottest day of the summer so far. I was like, why did you do this?
Oh,
That's all right. Yeah, the mats are so like yesterday, you know, we were training and usually it's no gi or it's gi on Tuesday nights, but man, the mats were so slippery. People were just like sliding in everywhere.
Well, and it wasn't even that bad last
we
night.
had a lot of people.
We had a good amount of people,
Yeah.
but like there's been a few times where like some sessions I will turn the air off just to like let it get warm so we can move or whatever. But I mean, sometimes you'll get those big giant puddles just sitting on the mats. But luckily we have the tatami style, so you got that grip to them. Because sometimes you certain mats, like you'll get on there and they'll be slick.
Oh, yeah. I love it when tough dudes come and train at our gym. It's like I got homeroom advantage. I feel like undefeated in our gym because it's like I know the mats. I know I could barely hit you with my big toe and I'll end up foot sweeping you.
Yeah.
So it's like,
how do you so you guys get probably a ton of visitors, right? Y'all get visitors. How do you like manage that? How do you deal with are people like headhunting you or like what's like
everybody's cool. There's only been a few times where people come in and they're like, I want to roll with you. It's usually when we're doing seminars in like England. Their big ass dude will come out of nowhere and he'll like for the last day, like while we're all beat up and he's fresh and they'll be just wanting to roll with me and couch. And it's usually the biggest dude on the whole island. Like I think they brought in like this English special forces dude at this one seminar. Yeah, big redheaded dude, just huge, probably 6'6", all muscle. And I was like, where the hell you come from? It's like this is day 3. And I remember at one camp we were in Wales, and there was this like Iranian junior national champion wrestler, and he came in with the Iran flag around his head.
Oh geez,
and I was like, oh shit,
fucking ready to go
for real. And this is like before the seminar started, and he came in and he was like, I just want to roll. And Heath was like, if you just want to roll, man, then come back in like an hour. I was like, we're going to do some technique and stuff, and then you can roll with the boys all you want. So he left, and I was like, yeah, he's not coming back. And then he showed back up. And Yeah, he wanted to scrap with me, and it lasted for like a minute. And I think they made like a meme of like a Taylor Swift song. I bow and arrowed him and like made him scream out real loud.
Oh, man.
And they edited his voice on like a Taylor Swift intro. And it's all fun and games. So
yeah, but y'all get sometimes. I mean, people see that now. Like you won trials. Like you're elite, man. So like you're one of the top guys now. So like I think
it's never at our gym. It's usually when we go
visit somewhere else,
visit other places that people want to try us.
Well, that's like I remember a buddy of mine. He was a Bellator fighter, and he was telling this story, and I was like, I'm never going to be that coach. He went to a gym and he was there training, and then the coach is like, hey, go roll with this guy, go roll with that guy, you know, doing the whole thing. And then about 7 rounds in, he's like, all right, man, cool. And then he jumps on him. Like, so after he's already got them all nice and tired, then the coach jumps on him the last round. I was like, man, like if you're gonna, you got to do first.
That's how you did me yesterday. You said you want to go first.
Well, I went first. I was like, I got to go first because I can't wait. Like, hey, go roll with this brown belt. I'm not gonna pick him out. And be like, I'll go first.
Yeah.
And then I'll let it go afterwards because I don't want to be that coach where you go in there like after you get the guy like tired a little bit. Then you're man, let's go for a roll for a little bit.
Like wrestling wears you out. Like even just drilling wrestling,
I'm telling you right now, I drilled wrestling. I've been drilling for like 30 minutes. Like every other day, with one of the guys on the team, Jared. And like after 30 minutes of hard drilling, you're like, Jiu-Jitsu is so much better.
Well, you can kind of slow it down a little bit. Wrestling, it's just going. You're going.
Like,
it's constant movement, constant like forward motion. Yeah, if you're going backwards, you get taken down. You got to come forward.
Best way to get good at wrestling is to play wrestle, like scrambling. They say that's why the Russians are so good because that's the only way that they wrestle. They just like spar rather than like go live. They're sparring. So like when they get put in weird positions, they're just like they've been there so many times. Their reaction times.
Are you saying they start in those like
like instead of like block drilling,
it's like later, it's a little bit looser. Like as far as like you're not going as hard. So instead of just going after it, like do like because when you say
kind of like flow rolling essentially,
kind of right. So like you basically you dial it down a little bit. So like instead of like if you do a live round, it's like all right, we're trying to win, right? Or whereas like you can have a round where you're giving yourself being a little bit more relaxed, where then it opens up opportunities, playing a little bit more.
Like say you take me down, I roll you through, then you got to go to the next step. You know, it's like I've trying to switch up my coaching style the past 2 weeks after I read that to that style. I have all my guys sparring now rather than block drilling where you shoot on me and take me down, I let you. Rather, I'm going to give you a reaction.
Right.
It's more like 50-60%, not 100 though.
I got you. So basically like, they're giving them a look, and are you having them give them like a specific reaction, or you just say, hey, here, do this, and then give them whatever reaction you want?
Give them a different reaction every time, pretty much.
Gotcha. And then the person works from there.
That's it. I mean, it
makes sense. That's why I switched it up. I just want to do a little trial run with it and see if my guys grow from it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense because then at that point you're basically giving the person something that's closer to mimicking what they'll feel when they're actually going live.
Exactly.
You know, because they're still getting a little bit of movement. You know, because we've all experienced it where you do like a drill where someone's just kind of giving you a certain look or just being relaxed or whatever, and it might work. And then whenever you're actually eventually you start hitting it live, it's always a little different.
Yeah, and you see like people at practice, they got the best sweep single ever, and then when it's time to wrestle a match, it's like where's that shot? You know, they got to be able to do it in competition. I think just doing more sparring with it will help open them up too.
Now with strength training something did you ever really dive into it before this recently, or was it something you'd kind of off and on do?
So like I would always like lift weights, like not on like an actual program or anything. But like since I got beat at the East Coast Trials, that's like been like a main focus for me.
Okay.
Staying consistent with the weights, you know, because if I want to go under 99, I got to put on size, because I was weighing 210 competing in the under 99, and those dudes are like 230 cutting down.
Yeah, because the weight under 99 is like what, 217 cut off?
I think it's 218.
218, okay.
And then 88's like 194 pounds.
Huge
so
gap.
I'm like in the middle to where it's like I can either cut all this weight and feel like shit, or I can get bigger, be fat and happy, you know.
Yeah.
And I think even when I was wrestling, like whenever I wasn't cutting weight and I was just focusing on getting better, that's when I really got good at wrestling.
Yeah.
When I was cutting weight, it was like, man, I don't even like to wrestle.
Right.
You know, so I made that decision, and then kind of just been hitting the weights hard and focusing on just max eating. So
what kind of stuff do they have you doing strength training wise? Is there anything in particular that they're working with or working you on?
So 3 days a week, I'll hit like a push pull leg day.
Uh-huh.
And then the other 2 days is more like body weight type cardio training, like with a partner, like body weight movements and
Okay.
stuff, you know.
Okay.
Like Heath will have us doing, like, one guy will be in north-south, he'll be holding them up, then they'll switch to side control, then they'll switch back to side control, holding them like halfway.
Okay.
You know, doing a lot of stuff like that. A lot of pummeling. Over under, like pushing the guy back and forth on the mat. You wouldn't believe how tired it gets your shoulders.
Oh yeah, like,
and your legs. Like my legs are like sore in like places I didn't even know I had muscles. And it's just like I know it's good if I'm sore in places I didn't know I could even be sore.
Yeah. Well, what about, like, do you do any other type of cardio? Like, do you run at all? Aerodyne, like
The Aerodyne bikes have been like it's like a love-hate relationship.
That's what everybody says.
I love the cardio that I get from it, but it's like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So I try to do at least like a run or a bike. I like to bike more than run because just my knees.
Yeah.
And so I'll either bike or like we'll flip tires and do like rope exercises and cardio like that.
Yeah, I think the secret with the bike is it's challenging, and like the harder you go, like the more kind of resistance you get, but also it's not beating up your joints as much, so you can kind of really get that, really push it 100% without trying to break your body down as much.
Yeah, I've never had no like serious injuries like wrestling stuff. Like a lot of wrestlers, their shoulders and their knees blow out, and I've been lucky. So obviously they're a little banged up, but they're not like completely blown out like some people. So I just kind of like keep my knees as fresh as I can.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that you came out of it lucky with no knee surgeries, no shoulder issues or whatever?
Because like my style of wrestling, I'm not shooting and getting stuck underneath people and then getting my shoulders put behind my head. It's a lot of like counter wrestling.
Okay.
So like whatever they do to me, I have like a counter to it. Slide bys, drags, front headlocks, stuff like that. So I'm never really like putting myself in a vulnerable position to get like sprawled on and my shoulders ripped off or my knee cranked. Yeah,
because I mean, even if like you talked about the slide by yesterday, right? You do a slide by, if it doesn't work, well, you're fine.
Yeah, you're still neutral.
You're still neutral. It's not a big deal. So it's like very low risk when you're going for it. You don't get yourself caught in a really bad spot.
Did you always like that countering style, like, or was that something you just kind of developed?
Yeah, I mean, my whole life, like growing up, I like learned who the best was at wrestling at the time is the Russians. So like I studied like a lot of the Russian wrestlers like Besik Kudakov, Sidakov, the Satiev brothers, and I kind of just based my whole style around that. And they're like their styles are like really like nonchalant, boom, short bursts, they'd score, you know. So that's kind of like how I would describe my style.
Are you still doing any study like now with jiu-jitsu? Like, are you still like studying, like if you're trying to develop a new technique, obviously drilling it in practice and finding, you know, those training partners are really good at it, but are you still like studying on your own, and how do you go about like breaking down a technique?
Yeah, I mean, I watch jiu-jitsu probably once a day, you know, for about in between sessions. I'll turn it on like YouTube or Flow, and it's really just the feel, like the seeing how people react, being in like different positions, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's doing that, I'll try that, you know. And I learn really well by watching. You know, like you don't really have to like hands-on show me something. I can like see it and then be able to do it.
Yeah, I think you've been grappling long enough there, like where eventually like you have such good like spatial awareness with your body that like you can look at something, and then when you go into the gym, you can actually work on it and actually get close to doing it or attempting it, because you've already done so much work with your body that it's easy.
Yeah, and then like if I'm not doing it right, I'll be like, hey, Heath or Couch or Spatch or Alejandro or George. You know, there's just so many different people that like can help me get it right.
Is there anything when you're like watching like matches, you know, because again, I like watching matches and trying to pick up things from those. Is there anything in particular that you look for when you're watching people compete?
I really watch how they step into the guard, you know, and like what they're doing from there, like how they're reacting to the person that's playing guard. How they're establishing, like how they're defending grips and stuff like that. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
I got you, because that's like something that you're looking to obviously you're typically going to be on top. You're going to be looking to pass. So that's something you're studying then, right? It's like, you're like, okay, how are they dealing with this particular type of guard? How are they dealing with this grip? How are they stepping in? That kind of stuff.
Well,
Yeah. So like just look at certain elements, because I think it can be, if you're someone just trying to, it can get overwhelming. Like you're just kind of watching it. You're trying to looking at maybe at something that you're specifically working on.
I think it's changed too. Like as I learn more about jiu-jitsu, like what I'm looking for in the matches, you know, like before I was just kind of watching it. Now it's like I'm like breaking it down and kind of seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting you're talking about like the early setups and body positioning, you know, which is really important, like grips, body positioning, hand fighting. It's like the most important stuff in a lot of cases, but it's interesting because it's like it's the most, if for anybody that's not aware of it, like they don't study it, it's not interesting to them. You're not going to find an Instagram video that like, hey man, like you got to like hand fight this way or that way. I mean, you might see them a little bit, but they're not going to go viral.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like some really slick finish or some whatever, like even like your darts and stuff, right? You could post a video of them, but oh my God, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
But talking to you already, right? It's like, well, really, it all started back at this when you got the 3/4, you know. So it's like it's the body positioning, the hand fighting stuff is so important. It's something I watch a lot, and it's one of those things where I feel like it's a lot of times younger grapplers or less experienced people, they don't really pay attention to it, and it's almost like watching like a boxing match. If you've boxed, then when you're watching boxing, like you're like looking at footwork, you're looking at slips, you're looking at all that stuff, because there's ways to position your body in boxing to like have an advantage. People that don't know boxing, they're not looking at that. All they know is, did he hit him or knock him out? That's all they know. Right. You know, it's like, so if they're watching like, you know, jiu-jitsu, did he submit him? Did he sweep him? Did he get a pass? Like otherwise it's like all the other stuff that's really important that sets that stuff up.
Yeah.
It just kind of,
it's an art, literally, you know. Jiu-jitsu is an art. Like watching two high-level grapplers go at it, it's somebody that like competes and like trains, like they respect it, you know. Other people that don't have a clue what's going on, they don't respect it.
Yeah, it's you know, the like Chew was saying, like it's the highlight is the submission, but like the important stuff is the setup, the hand fighting, the positioning, the entry, all that stuff is
basic
important.
win at the highest level.
Yeah,
and wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. We had so there are a couple of I was actually like, after you did your class yesterday, a couple of guys knew that, you know, I'd do the podcast with you, and they're like, you got to ask Michael this. So I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the Craig Jones Invitational? And then you obviously worked so hard to win your chance to get into the ADCC. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And like, do you feel like it, good, bad? You think it's good for jiu-jitsu? Does it take away from the ADCC? Like, how do you feel about it?
No, I think it's great. It would have been better if it was a different weekend.
Yeah.
You know, not the same weekend as ADCC, but I earned my spot at the ADCC. So, I'm gonna rep ADCC, you know. Who's to say that the Craig Jones Invitational will last 1 year? You know, now all those guys that were in, they all got to do the trials, and they kind of burned a bridge, you know. So I'm just gonna stay loyal to just keep my word, you know. On doing what I agreed to do.
That's a good point.
It does. I mean, Mo's paying the ADCC guys $2,500, so it did help, you know, Craig doing that.
That's cool. Yeah. That's a cool thing.
So you're getting a little money, but like, I think the loyalty piece, like, I think that's just something when you get into jiu-jitsu, I think like that's like, as a spectator, you know, I've done jiu-jitsu, I'm a hobbyist, but as a spectator, like I've always seen like ADCC as like it's like the World Series, it's the Super Bowl. It's like, if you achieve that, you're the greatest.
I mean, that's all they've been talking about since I started, you know? So it's like, why would I give up my spot?
But it's interesting though. It's like, it's only been a spectator event for one. Like, do you remember anybody ever making a big fuss about any other ADCC about being a spectator?
And that was the first one that I ever went to.
Yeah.
2022.
That's the first
one.
I
mean, they've been around. I mean, they were around, but like you go watch like ADCCs from previous periods, go look in the stands. Like plenty of
there were no stands, man. It's like
the last one was epic, and I say this one is going to be bigger.
I mean, it was epic, and so it's interesting because it's interesting to watch. Like, you know, it is what it is. Like, you know, I've talked about this already on the podcast. It's like it would be cool to see jiu-jitsu grow to a point where, because like right now we're basically like the WNBA. WNBA just like, I think they just had their first profitable year last year, and now they're doing okay.
Yeah,
but they were they were subsidized by the NBA. So the NBA was always paying them money to keep them afloat. So basically, like jiu-jitsu events essentially are like big spectator events are like basically we have to find some rich guy to pay us.
Yeah.
We got to find some guy over in the Middle East, or we got to find some other guy that Craig's got, whoever, to pay some money. Yeah. It would be cool if we could create a spectator event that could draw, like, because again, really what you want to get is not people that don't do jiu-jitsu. You just want to get the people that train jiu-jitsu who don't compete all the time, to get them out.
That's the first,
because those are your people, right?
I got parents, the kids that I coach, they already booked their flights. They're coming. They don't know shit about grappling.
But they're like, you're there.
They're lit though. They're like, we're here. Like, it's gonna be.
We did the same thing. Like we're still gonna, we already have tickets to ADCC. We're gonna go. Like, it was such an incredible event last year or 2 years ago. Like, as soon as it was over, like, we're going back.
Yeah.
Like, it was incredible. Like, I mean,
they had Bruce Buffer there. They had the old Pride announcer there.
Yeah. So if you can create a spectator event that people really want to go to and come back to, and that's like something that, like, again, we don't have to beat a dead horse, but like, you have to have that. Like, you can't just have some guys in a gymnasium grappling, like, and expect people to pay tickets. You got to have a spectacle, because you got to make it to where it's like a big pageantry. It's like the iPhone. Yeah. Like, they put so much thought into the box the iPhone came into. It's like, if they would have just said, here's your iPhone, it wouldn't have been nearly as enjoyable of an experience. Sure. The packaging is very important. Yep. Although I think I'd be all right without the lady announcer. Yeah. I wasn't the biggest fan of her.
I was all right with that. Like,
it's just
the Pride announcer, wasn't it?
Yeah. She was the Pride announcer for a little bit, and she'd done some other Japanese stuff. Japanese people love her.
I was like, the first, like, I was like, oh, I was excited because Pride, and then after a while, I was like, all right,
it was a lot.
She can stop screaming.
I like the drums and the fire, though. That was badass. Yeah. It was like a show,
It was,
and it more of a show.
Think about too, like, people that weren't there. The thing about it was the energy. Yeah, and I was like, dude, you walk in, you're like, oh my god, all the fighters are coming out and kind of facing off.
They had those lights going on the mat.
Yeah, and you're there to watch a jiu-jitsu match. You're like, this is crazy.
It just felt like, and then like the first match went off, and it was like got real quiet.
Yeah.
And the lights dimmed down.
And there's been one event like that. It's the only one that's ever been done. The rest of them had always been kind of like whatever. That was the first time they really did it like that.
And it was great. I mean, it was
this time, this one's gonna be even bigger than that. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Are you nervous at all? I mean, I know we said are you more nervous? Like, would you feel more pressure, less pressure? I mean, like,
I feel really good going into it, because like the big dudes are gonna overlook me. You know what I mean? They're gonna probably take think it's going to be an easy match, what I mean? And then when they get tapping me and they realize, oh, this dude's not going that easy, I feel like I'm in a good spot. Mm-hmm. I don't have anything to lose.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm going in there, but I'm definitely going in there to win.
Yeah. How old are you?
27.
Yeah. So you're in a great position because you still got,
I'll be 28. My birthday's like 3 days before it.
Oh shit. So cool. So you'll be like turning 28 right around it'd be a good birthday. Go get some birthday wins. But you're in a situation where it's your first ADCC. You're still a young guy. You're in a perfect spot where it's like, man, I've been doing this for 4 years. I'm going to win, of course, but it's like, you're not like one of the guys where it's like, this is my last ADCC.
It's not make it or break it.
Exactly. You're going to have some time. So that kind of puts you, I think that puts you in like a fun spot where you can just be so aggressive. Cause like, you're out there what do you have to lose? Go kill someone. Like, go out and try to, don't kill them, but go out and finish them, right? Go out for the finish, for the submission.
I'm going to go out there and just put on a show, and it'll definitely be the best version of me that anybody's ever seen.
Plus, at the 99 division, I mean, a lot of guys are going to want to do takedowns.
Yeah, they all think they're wrestlers, but they only wrestle one way, front and back. So I think that that just works out in my favor,
Yeah, it's fun watching, like, obviously, like with one of the guys that was trained with me, Brandon, watching you when you guys get out there and go with guys who wrestle in a jiu-jitsu tournament, and then they get a hold of you guys. It's like, it's different, because it's like, it's a different level of wrestling. Like you said, you're doing a lot of angles, a lot of hand fighting. It's just not the same thing.
I think the hand fighting is what throws them off the most, because they're not used to like being like moved around the way that we can like move them, mm-hmm. And it's like playing with a puppet. I think once you get them moving, they get lost in the matrix.
Yeah.
And then you'll see a lot of the times the dudes will just sit like immediately. They feel the first initial like tie up, and then they're like, no, they just sit.
Yeah.
That happened to me for like, it took like 2 years for like the higher level dudes to stand up and wrestle me. They all would just pull guard.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm never going to get to wrestle again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me of again, going back to boxing as an analogy. I remember boxing with a guy that was really good, like pro, and I remember like his head movement. Like, you always have head movement, but like, I mean, his head movement, like he was always like in a weird position where you couldn't quite hit him.
Mhm.
And like, you're always feel like you're reaching for him. And then at one point I remember like trying to punch him and I feel like I'm fighting a ghost, you know, like I can't hit the guy. I'm literally trying to put my jab on him and I can't. And the same thing sometimes when you wrestle a guy who is constantly changing angles, moving like side to side, you know, going for feints and making you move. It's like it exhausts you. And they're not even doing anything. They're just like moving and doing different things. But if you're not used to it, you get exhausted dealing with that. Especially if you're in jiu-jitsu, if you're used to going up and getting in a collar tie and basically shoving each other back and forth.
You're like almost you feel like a step behind.
That's
like
it.
You're trying to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's such a like a dynamic and like a smoothness to like your wrestling. Like when you're kind of doing some of that stuff yesterday, you're kind of just showing some technique, just, you know, I'm doing with my training partner. We're just trying to figure out, but the way you do it, it feels so smooth. It's like you like guide me where you want me to go. It's like here you go, right there. Just lay down right there. You know, it's
years and years and years.
It's so smooth, and that's the thing. Like it almost like when you're wrestling, it almost like looks like you're not really working that hard. You know, like very efficient, and I think that's something that takes time. But like in boxing, like very efficient. They're moving a lot, constantly out of the way, but it's efficient movement as well.
Oh yeah,
and I think it's that's the thing. Yeah.
I tell my wrestlers all the time, they're like doing all these weird fakes and stuff. I'm like, you're doing too much, man.
Yeah.
Keep it like limited. Like don't like overexert yourself.
Yeah.
Calculated movements.
Right. Strategic, you know, so you're not wasting energy and you're moving.
Like you're wasting a lot of energy, like faking 10 times. The dude doesn't even respect your fake now, you know? So it's like you gotta calculated movements is what I'm big on.
So what do you do to relax? So you're training all the time. You're grinding your body down mentally. You're having to stay super focused, which can be just as tough, right? When you're doing the life of a full-time athlete. So what do you do to relax and help yourself recover, or when you got a day off to kind of get some downtime?
I love going to the pool, just sitting in the sun and then hitting the little lazy river, maybe jump off the diving board. Like I probably go to the pool 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah. Do you guys have like a little water park near you guys?
Yeah, we got the water park, and then or sometimes we go to the lake beach.
Okay.
Play sand volleyball and just relax after like a hard wrestling day. That's probably, I mean, I like to go watch movies too, like go to the movie theater every now and then.
Nice.
Sometimes we go bowling. We mix it up. There's not a whole lot to do in Mount Vernon. Yeah. But like we make the most out of it. We always have a good time.
Maybe it's like a great thing. It's like, it reminds me of the Militich back then. They were in the middle of Iowa.
Pat Militich and Matt Hughes.
Yeah. It was like at the time, it was like I remember someone was talking to him.
Bettendorf, I think.
Something like Bettendorf. Yeah. And like he was like, there's nothing to do here. He's like, so he was like, it was like when I think 3 of the belts were all Militich guys, you know, like 3 of the UFC titles were Militich guys. And they're like, what are you doing out there? It's like, we just train all the time because and like, I think Robbie Lawler's like, there's nothing to do here. He's like, we just train. Obviously there's more to do there than in Mount Vernon because you're not that far away from St. Louis, but maybe that's kind of like a helpful part of it, right? It's like, it's easier to stay focused because there's not as many distractions.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not at the gym, what are you doing? You know, I'm either at the house just relaxing. I don't play video games. I used to, but I got logged out of my Xbox account, so I just sold it. I was pissed off. And
did you play them too much back in the day?
No, I would play like Call of Duty for like an hour, maybe a day, if that. But I just like being outside when I can, for the most part.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to like do it. Like you're doing some, like you're swimming, you're in the water, you're doing like some movement.
More recovery type stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, because a lot of times they talk about, right, like to get better recovery, you don't want to just sit and veg all day, right? Like, but getting out and doing some sort of movement. And then for me, like I find being outside like just kind of therapeutic. Like it's having some property. Like I'll just go outside and work on the property, putting up some fencing or whatever we got to do. And you know, it's work, but it kind of feels good after I'm done. I kind of feel refreshed from doing something different than jiu-jitsu, being out in nature and just being out in the sun and everything else.
We got like 5 acres too, so it's always fun just walking outside.
That's it.
Feeling grounded.
Yeah.
Just doing stuff. What are your goals? What do you think? What do you want to, I mean, besides ADCC, what do you have going on like in the future, or what do you want to accomplish?
So I want to win the worlds at every belt color, IBJJF worlds at every belt.
Have you won blue and purple?
I didn't win purple. No,
you did not. Okay.
I won blue twice.
Okay. You're purple.
You just got purple. You just recently got purple. Is that correct?
In like January.
Okay.
And I want to win the worlds at each belt. I want to compete on the AIGA
Okay.
go against some Russians. That's a goal of mine. Win the ADCC.
Let's go win everything.
Just win, man. I just want to keep building my my brand and just stay focused and keep doing me.
Very cool.
And
What's
helping the youth, man. I'm really big on helping the kids program and helping them succeed as well.
very cool. What's been you kind of mentioned a little bit about like some travels. What's been your favorite place to travel? Like, that you guys have got to go with like the Pedigo guys. Where have y'all gotten to go that you really love?
So I love Liverpool just because we got so many like friends over there. It's always fun bouncing around like Patty Pimbo's gym and or the Four Corners gym. That's always a good time. But I'd say like the nicest place I've been to. We went to Africa too. We went to Mauritius.
Okay.
But I think we were on the opposite side of like all the cool stuff, all the pictures and stuff. Because like where we were at was like super poverty. Like it was just a lot of poverty.
Yeah.
But it was still fun being with the boys, like 50 hours away from Mount Vernon. And I'd say my favorite place is Northern Ireland, though. I had a good time there. They showed us a lot of love and took us to like where like all those movies, the Viking movies and stuff were filmed, and the Game of Thrones, and took us out on like dune buggies. So that was a good time, and it felt like you're kind of like on the edge of the world.
Interesting.
Well, especially, if you're, like you said, if you're from Mountain Vernon and stuff, it's like completely different culture, completely different people. You get some Irish people, if they start talking fast, what are you saying? Like
when we went to Scotland, like I'd be showing like a move or something, and like I'd be like, any questions? And like the person in the crowd would say something. I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Say that again. You got to slow down.
That's fun, man. You were there was a video or no picture of you like were you training with were you doing wrestling with somebody? Who was it?
Paulo Costa.
Yeah, Paul Costa.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
How did that come about?
That was cool. So my sponsor Rocky, he's friends with Paulo's coach Eric, and they've been
the guy with the glasses.
Yeah, they've been trying to link me up, or me and Eric's been trying to link up for like the past 2 years. He keeps wanting me to go to Brazil.
Okay.
Drive to Brazil, and I'm like, nah, that sounds dangerous.
Drive to Brazil?
Yeah, he's just messing around.
Okay.
But he just hit me up and he's like, hey, Paulo needs some wrestling rounds. Are you free? And I didn't have anything going on, so I was like, yeah, and just went out there and hung out with them for like the week, and yeah, it was a good time. Made a lot of good connections. Met the wrestling prep lady, Carolyn Wester. She's coming to do a seminar at our gym for our wrestling academy. So it was a good experience. Yeah,
that's
it was
awesome,
fun.
man. That's very cool.
I didn't learn any Portuguese though.
No. Is there anybody you've met like in your travels, like any like that you've been starstruck, or anybody's like, oh my god? No.
Nah, I try not to get like that. They're just a normal person at the end of the day.
Yeah, very cool.
I feel like if I ever met McGregor, I might get like that.
Yeah.
I like McGregor.
He's a wild one.
Stipe Miocic was cool. Paulo Costa was cool. I met Jamal Hill, Marab, Aljamain Sterling. Did
you go to Vegas? Is that where
we
you
were
went?
at the UFC PI.
Yeah. What's that like?
It's cool, man. It's like it was just a little training center that all the fighters. Vegas is like the hot spot.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but it's the hot spot. So like throughout the day, like you probably see 50, 60 people that are in the UFC. It was we always went around the same time, so it was always like the same people. But one of the coolest things was we were all sitting in the sauna. It was like Paulo Costa, like Jamal Hill, and like his camp, and a bunch of different camps, and like it was just dead silent. I was like, to me though, I'm like, this is cool. I'm like, it's like there was like a noise in the silence to me. It's like all these dudes are just here doing their own thing, not worried about each other. It's like, it's pretty cool. They're all just chasing the same goal.
That's cool, man. Yeah.
You said you coach kids and stuff like that, and obviously you started as a kid. I know I have some younger men and women that train, boys and girls that train. What would you give like as a tip? Because again, doing something for 20 plus years is hard, right? To say do it from the time you're a kid to an adult, that's tough. There's periods of like you might feel burnt out, you might be frustrated, you might have there's ups and downs with everything. It's a relationship. Is there anything that you like if you had like one of your kid wrestlers in front of you and he's like asking for some advice, is there anything that you would tell him that maybe has been useful to you with your relationship with wrestling and in grappling?
Yeah, I would say just focus on the little things. Focus on just getting better when you're young rather than like focusing on trying to win so much. Like you're not going to win when you win kid state titles and stuff, that's cool. But once you get to high school, nobody nobody asks you, did you win a kid state championship?
Mhm.
And then once you get to college, nobody's worried about how you did in high school.
Right.
You know, and then once you're done with college, who gives a shit anyways? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you got a couple titles. Cool. But like, you know, it doesn't even matter. And I learned that after being 2 years off the mat. It's like, you're just another person now. Welcome to the real world. So I would just say, just focus on the journey, enjoy it, you know, embrace it. Because you're not going to be able to do this your whole life, especially with wrestling. Only 5 wrestlers make the Olympic team. So it's like, if you're not the number 1 dude in the country, you're not going to make it to the Olympics. So it's like, really just don't put so much pressure on yourself like I did. You know, I put too much pressure on myself to have to go out there and perform and win. And it kind of burnt me out. By my senior year of college, I was like, I hate wrestling. You know, I'm cutting all that weight. And yeah, I would just say, really just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey rather than trying to put too much like unnecessary pressure on you.
Well, and you kind of said something there that I think is important, right? Like, you can get really lost into thinking that some sort of title, some sort of medal, some sort of whatever is somehow going to like change everything. You know, there will be a couple of days, maybe some weeks where like, oh man, you're so cool. Like, you're the best guy ever, whatever. This is true with jiu-jitsu too, right? You know, you climb the rank. Oh, you're a blue belt world champion. Well, now you're a purple belt. Nobody gives a shit about your blue belt.
Exactly.
Anymore,
Nobody
right?
even cares.
Yeah. Then you keep going up. And then, like you said, like, okay, you're an ADCC champion. Okay, well, at the grocery store, nobody cares. Like, nobody, like, as soon as you walk outside of the jiu-jitsu tournament, you go back to like
Welcome
regular
to the
world.
real world.
Yeah, you know, you're a regular person. And I think it's important because it's like, you know, it's fine to chase those things. It's great to have those goals and everything else, but no matter, to me, really what you're getting out of it is you as a person, your character, the skills that you develop, your enjoyment out of it, the memories you have, the experiences you have. Those are the things you actually get to like that really change and impact you, because at the end of the day, all the medals, all the titles, everything else, I mean, it's cool to have. They can be useful in some ways for like brand and business and developing your own sort of like maybe gym or whatever someday. But beyond that, it's like, nobody cares. And it's like when people, they get really excited. Oh man, if I only had that car, everything, or if I had that big fat house, everything would be better. Like, no, man, it's like whatever kind of problems you have right now, they'll be with you in the car, be with you in the house.
You notice it when you get a new pair of shoes. You're like, oh, dude, these shoes are so cool. And then it's like after like a couple weeks, you're like, these are just shoes.
The shoes,
you know,
they're getting dirty.
I need a new pair.
They're getting messed up. Yeah, exactly.
They were the coolest thing when you got them.
Right. But like finding that enjoyment with it, like where you can enjoy it day to day, like that's important.
Enjoy the journey and enjoy all the memories you make with it. Really is the best advice I would give to a younger kid.
That's right.
Yep.
I remember talking to old lifters, like dudes that like old lifters, and even some old jiu-jitsu guys that are like old. Like one of the lifter mentors that I had, he was like in his 60s. He'd worked out with guys that used to like work out with Arnold and everything else. And I remember those dudes, like, I mean, they had some pictures, right? But all the muscle, I mean, they were big. He was still big and strong, but didn't look like he used to. But he had these memories, and they had stories. They would all be like swapping. So, oh man, remember when we lifted the fridge in front of the people and did the show, you know? And then you listen to some like old wrestlers or some old jiu-jitsu guys, and they're like, this one time this guy's like slapping me in the head and I'm coming back at him. They got stories, you know, they got battle stories or whatever. And that's the stuff that like you really hang on to.
That's what sticks with you forever.
Yeah, that's it. That's like your thing, and it's worth a lot. But you know, again, I've never, not one of them. I mean, most of them have never like they swap stories. They don't get out. Hey man, look at my medal. Who remembers this medal? Oh, this is so cool. You know, like, and maybe that's something too, where like even like you see a lot of guys in jiu-jitsu where, you know, and again, winning's winning. Sometimes you got to do it right, but you see some guys that really play very timid. And they have the word, or I've seen guys, I'm sure you've seen this, where you'll see a guy in jiu-jitsu. It's kind of bad in the IBGF sometimes, where they'll go out there and they'll purposely try to draw a DQ, you know, like where they'll try to put themselves in a position where the reap happens.
And they can get out the easy way.
Right. Well, and it's like, bro, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how do you go back to how do you go back home and like even talk about the win? Right. Because it's like, okay, you got a DQ win, whatever. But like, you know, part of when you have a good battle with someone, you come back and you're talking, you're like, how'd it go, man? Oh, we were going back and forth. There's a fun side to that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you go back? Oh man, you should have seen me. Guy put me in a straight ankle lock position, put me in ashi. I took his foot, pushed it across, screamed, and the ref gave me the DQ, man. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, bro, it's like the lamest story ever, right? Like at the end of the day, you want to have some good battles and have some stuff that's worth talking about, right? Because like going back to, it's an art form. That's your art.
I remember it happened like with one of our guys. They like reaped the leg or something, and the ref was gonna DQ him, and Heath was like, "Please, please don't DQ him. Like, we don't care." And then the ref was like, "All right." I think it was even like the World Finals or something big.
That's
like
awfully.
that.
It's awfully nice to ref because sometimes those guys are like,
He was like, "Please, Professor, don't DQ him," and then let the guy keep going. You know, it's like he's not trying to win like that.
yeah.
That's just like a good mentor to have around you. He would never let us do some soft shit like that.
Yeah.
That's not
Oh, he was.
mentality.
Oh, so the
opponent.
guy. Oh, the opponent was getting ready to
Yes.
get DQ'd.
Yeah, and Heath was like, "No, don't DQ
Okay.
him."
Yeah, and that's cool because I mean, some refs wouldn't. I mean, some guys wouldn't do that. I mean, I remember the guy that Brandon was. He didn't know what he was doing at the time. Like he just jumped right into it and didn't. We talked about reaping, but whatever. It just he's still young, you know, with jiu-jitsu, jumps right into it. And again, you know, the guy it was a real reap, and so the guy got the DQ fair and square. But like the guy got up and was like, like screaming.
Such a stupid way to win.
I was like, bro, like I've never won a DQ win, but if I have, if I ever did win a DQ or even like an advantage, I'm like, get my hand raised, shut my mouth, like, you know. It's just like you said, it's not the way you want to win. You get a submission and you want to like let off a big roar or something, go ahead, man, do it, but not off that.
Yeah, for sure.
What was I'm curious, where did that pose come from? That winning pose, where was that from? When you guys win, y'all do one arm up?
Heath used to do that back in the day in his MMA fights.
Okay.
So
I'm just curious. You guys always do. I didn't know.
I moved there, and that was the thing. So that's that's what I do. But that's what everybody does. But if you watch Heath's old MMA fights, he does that after his wins.
Interesting.
Yeah, it kind of just stuck with him.
What's one thing maybe about Heath that like makes him unique? Like maybe one thing that makes him stand. I know I'm sure there's a lot of stuff, but it's like maybe one thing about him as a coach that you really admire, appreciate.
He's always like 10 steps ahead. You know, like everything he's ever told me has happened. And it's like, I don't know. I just call him the mafia leader. He's legit like the Godfather. He's just got everyone's best interests at heart, and he's always looking out for you. So it's hard not to respect that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And from the sounds of it, it sounds like he's creating an environment where, like, you know, it's not like, maybe who knows? I don't know. I'm not there. But from the sound of it, it sounds like he's like facilitating a good environment where everybody can, like, let's say if someone has a question, right, with something, and maybe Couch is like the best guy for it.
Yeah,
like, well, that's Couch. Like he's right there. He's one of our resources.
That's exactly how it is.
You know what I mean? But like, there's a lot of guys in jiu-jitsu where like the coach is like, everybody has to come to me for everything, and like you end up wasting the valuable resource they have because everybody develops a different game. And like we all have different body styles, different temperaments. So that's your guy over there to talk to triangles. If you want to have that, that's your guy, that kind of thing. I think it's a good environment when you have guys have different styles and they can teach stuff. Because like you were saying, you were learning this thing from that guy, this thing from that guy. And I think that's a good culture.
I think another thing too, it's like everybody's like always so intimidated to come to PSF. They're like, oh, I'd never train. I'm like, dude, it's a place for everyone. Mm-hmm. It's like there's world champions in there, obviously, but there's also people who are just like being a part of something.
Sure.
So it's like, it's honestly a place for everyone. And Heath created that environment. It's just a good environment, man.
That's
I
awesome.
love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure people just would be intimidated because if they go watch, like, again, it goes back to like the hand fighting versus submission highlights. One's way just inherently more exciting. Watching like the class where that you have your hobbyists or your casual people that are there kind of to be a part of the team, be a part of it, but they're not out there trying to compete every weekend. And they're not necessarily training on that level. They're just not going to be inherently exciting as, like, say, like you guys. So a lot of times those things don't get showcased. So people, if they were watching Pedigo stuff, they're probably just thinking every round is a kill, kill or be killed. Like every round's a monster round. Like, so that's probably what people think about it.
It is like that some days.
But you have those days, you have those times.
But nobody like is gonna just try to break you off, especially if you're like new and don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge thing. That's such an important environment, gym environment. Caring about each other. I think it's one of the most important things because like I always tell people. I mean, I drive about. It's not a big deal, but I drive like probably 40-45 minutes to get to the gym when there's like 4 or 5 gyms closer to me along the way. And it's just because of the environment that we have, and like everybody's super cool, and I enjoy. And part of it's like I enjoy training with the people I'm with. It's not just about the jiu-jitsu for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I'm 40. Like I'm not gonna be a world champion. Like I'm not doing it to be a world champion. I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it. And I'd rather do it with people I love.
Yeah, enjoy the people that you're doing.
Yeah, and that's good. And that makes it also for you guys, like when you're training like every single day and it's hard and it's tough rounds and it's hot and you're beat up, like you wanted to be around people that you trust and you enjoy doing
Nice having
with,
people around you that only have your best interest at
yeah,
heart.
and that's what allows you to push that hard. So I was gonna ask you, man, if you're doing any like seminars or if people want to get a hold of you to learn some wrestling or kind of train with you and do stuff with you, where can they do that?
I'm doing one this weekend in New York, and then after that, I'm just strictly focusing on Jiu-Jitsu.
And if people
ADCC.
Want to get a hold of you and kind of see what you're up to, where can they do that?
Yeah, just message me on Instagram, Pixley7.
And then with the ADCC coming up in August, is there anything that like should basically anybody watching, if they follow you, will they just be seeing the same sort of tried and true method of wrestle, get them down, try to choke them out, or are you trying to throw some different tricks out there?
Might see a leg lock or two.
We'll
see.
All right,
can't give up all my secrets.
That's right. That's right. We can't get too deep into it.
Cool, man. Man, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming down, showing some slick wrestling, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast and got something from it. There's a lot of gems within that podcast. You're talking to a younger athlete who's I would probably estimate going to be coming into his prime with probably in the next like 3 to 5 years.
That's scary to think about.
Yeah, because he's not there yet.
Yeah,
I mean, you never know, because I mean, like for instance, weird things happen. Injuries happen, catastrophic events happen. You just never know what could happen. But assuming everything goes smoothly and his body, stays together and, he keeps a good head on his shoulders, right? I mean, typically you're thinking prime, for most people's in their like early 30s.
Yeah.
Not their late 20s. And so, especially for grappling, like grappling has a lot of longevity where if you get pretty good, you can start to, because it's a lot of the positions, you can start slowing things down and being a lot tighter.
Yeah.
And so again, you'll see this guy for years to come, I imagine. And so you're hearing a guy who's still relatively early in his jiu-jitsu career, who's going to have some years ahead of him. And it's probably going to be a person that you're going to see for some time. But again, it's going to be exciting to see him at the ADCC. I'm really excited to see how he does. Rolling with him yesterday felt so strong. I was so surprised. Like, man, like I knew he was going to be strong, but that was like, he was very strong.
Different kind of strength, huh? Got the wrestler strength, maybe.
Well, it's like you look at him and he's also got like gorilla arms. Like his arms are so long.
Yeah.
Like I was joking with him. I was like, friggin' guy's like dragging his knuckles on the ground, right? It's like he's built perfectly for Darces.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I always think about that. It's interesting how the technique finds the person. You know what I mean? Because like a lot of times we're searching, like, what's going to be my technique?
Right.
If you explore enough, it's like they find you.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't know how everything all comes together, because it's like interesting, right? Like he could have never planned when he was 8 years old that running this 3/4 Nelson position is going to lead towards Darce chokes and anacondas and everything else 20 years down the road or something. That's what happens, right? And so sometimes that's the way that your game works. Like you try to learn as much as you can, you use what you can, you find the things that work for you. And a lot of times the way that you find those things is it's just like trying foods, right? You sample foods, you get a little thing. Oh, I really like this. That's what I want more of that. I'm going to eat that. And it's just the way it is. Like I'm sure you could probably like measure someone out and be like, you're built for this type of move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or intuitively, you can look at someone and say, I think you should be using this move. But for a lot of us, it just becomes an intuitive exploration thing where you just do stuff. And I know a lot of people are like, hey, how do I know the right move for me? It's like, well, you don't. You go out and explore and you'll find it. You'll know when you find it. And there's a part of that. There's an element to that. And again, I was talking to him yesterday. I was like, did you decide to do the Darce? And he was like, no, I was already just doing this 3/4 position. And so Couch shows me how to finish his Darce choke up.
Yeah. Became this incredible thing. Like I think it just feels natural. Like I think it just feels right. Like when you find a technique.
Well, even like
really
your
works.
loop choke.
It just I just felt it. I don't know what it was.
Just felt good.
I thought I created it, like I said, and I was like, wait, I didn't create this thing. I don't think anybody showed me.
Yeah.
But I just started doing it. I was like, how the hell did I do this? But it was like I was like, oh, it's actual technique. But I don't recall anyone ever showing me that movement or that submission. But I just started finding it and feeling it, and I could see it. Then you start seeing it everywhere. You're like, oh, I see it here, I see it there, and then you start using it, and it just feels right. And I think that's for him. His wrestling kind of feeds into that position. He just found that position was there, and it's really been successful for him.
Yeah. And so that's something to take away for you guys. If you're like, if you didn't, I mean, there's plenty of other stuff you could have taken away, but if something you wanted to take away is that, right? Like when you're searching for your techniques, understand that sometimes your techniques are going to find you. That's the way it's going to be. Like instead of being in a situation where you put this pressure on yourself that I have to find the technique that I'm going to use or whatever, just relax, enjoy the training. Like you're saying, have fun with it. We always talk about it, so cliche, enjoy the journey, whatever, but it's true, right?
It is.
But sample stuff and enjoy it and play with it. And what you'll find is that probably through trial and error and exploration, you'll just find what works for you.
Yep.
You know, the technique will find you. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast, got something from it. And, you know, if any of you guys are going to be out at the ADCC this coming summer in August, then be sure to come up and say hey. And you can come chat. We did that last time. It was a lot of fun back in 2022. So I got to meet a lot of you guys. And so, guys, with that said, thank you guys for being on the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Charlotte's Web CBD. If you guys want to check them out, try out some of their products, you can get 30% off whatever you order by going to their website at charlottesweb.com. And the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off. Also, guys, epicrollbjj.com. If you guys want to go on there, they have tons of great stuff. They have gis, rash guards, no-gi gear, the whole deal, right? Very cool designs, great customer service, good quality stuff. 20% off the order, Jiu-Jitsu 20 at checkout at epicrollbjj.com. If you guys want to support the podcast directly and become a patron like many other people have, you can do so by going to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you join up, you'll have access to an exclusive library of exclusive content we have. I said exclusive twice, a little redundant, but you get the picture.
Exclusive squared.
Exclusive. So again, we have the content there. And again, what it goes to is to help support the podcast, doing the things that we need to do, possibly bringing in guests periodically, or even just getting new equipment to try to beef up things a little bit. So if you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, you can do that at the patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, guys, if you want to get my daily email that I send out, which I give you some sort of training idea tip or some idea to think about, to chew on, along with exclusive offers that I send out to that, I call it the Chew Crew. Then you can join the Chew Crew by going to chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. When you join up, put your email in there. You'll get some free gifts that I give away, and then you'll get my daily email that you can unsubscribe unsubscribe from at any time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast. Thank you for joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.